Compañero, welcome. My name is Carlos El Chacon, and my podcast aims to bring you together with others working with SQL Server and engage in conversations to share ideas, meet old friends, and make a few new friends along the way. I call it the SQL Trail. Thanks for joining me.
SQL Data Partners.
Compañeros, welcome again to the SQL Trail. This is Carlos El Chacon, your host, and it's good to be with you again today. Today, we are going to be talking with Kevin and Eugene, right? Mixing things up a little bit. And we've had them on as panelists, right? As co-hosts, whatever you want to call them. And I thought, okay, well, maybe it's time to just kind of recap with them, ask them, go through the SQL family questions, things like that. So we don't really have a topic per se in mind, but we thought we'd go ahead and plunge in and give you some updates and things on what we're doing. So this is episode 138. I do have a couple of compañeros shout outs I want to give out. One to Mike Walsh, who I think we're going to convince to get onto the show. So that should be fun. The other to Saul Cruz. So Saul Cruz, longtime listener, finally reaching out from Atlanta. So it's about to turn into Hotlanta here. So hopefully he survives. So thanks, Saul, for connecting. And to Brent Ozar, connecting on LinkedIn. And I sent him a message, and he hasn't replied yet. So Brent, I'm really sorry. We can still be friends. Before we get into today's episode, I do want to remind everyone about the SQL Trail. So SQL Trail, October 10th to the 12th here in Richmond, Virginia. You as podcast listeners have a special $100 off code you can use, which should not be surprising, is SQL Trail. And you can use that, again, to save $100 off. We make a special announcement. We've been talking about doing something on Friday, a workshop of some type. I will make that announcement today, and you can hear more information about that in the episode. So let's go ahead and jump into today's conversation. Okay, compañeros, we're doing something a little different today. You've seen some of the changes that we've had, or not seen, right? Unless you have very advanced vision, in which case I'd like to chat with you about it. But you've heard some of the changes that we've made, and you know that we're having more panel type discussions, and that Kevin Feasel from Raleigh, North Carolina, and Eugene Meidinger. Oh, Durham. I'm sorry. Durham, North Carolina.
Totally different place. 15 minutes away.
Well, so because you do the SQL Sat Raleigh, that's why I associate you with Raleigh. And then Eugene from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
You're going to tell me you're from some suburb of Pittsburgh.
Whoa. Durham is not a suburb of Raleigh. These are two independent cities. They're strong independent cities.
Yes.
Chapel Hill, however, that's kind of out there.
Yeah, I live in a township, or I guess it's a township, maybe a borough. I just put Pittsburgh. When people ask me where I live, I tell them Pittsburgh. So I'm not finicky.
There you go.
Yeah.
Steel country. Right?
Yeah.
So what we thought we'd do today is just have an episode with the three of us, so you compañeros, you listeners, right, can get to know them a bit better, and that we can talk about some of the things that we're working on and doing. And so we don't necessarily have a topic ahead of time. So I'm gonna put these guys on their toes and see if they can come up with an episode for me here on the fly.
Challenge accepted.
Well, so the first thing that I want to talk about, we've talked about your Pluralsight courses before, Eugene.
Yeah.
But you're working on another one.
So I've got two Pluralsight courses out right now on Power BI. One's on data gateways and one's on DAX. And the DAX one's going really well. And then I've got another one lined up that should be coming out sometime this year. I think that's about as specific as I'm allowed to be.
There you go.
About different deployment methods for Power BI. But it's funny that last year I hit a bunch of these things on my career bucket list that 5 years ago seemed like this big, huge deal that were totally impossible.
Right.
And one of them was like being on your podcast, right?
Woohoo! Yeah.
And now I'm like a co-host. It's great. But no, it's amazing how many things that I was starstruck at the time, and that there actually are ways to stair step your way towards it. And Pluralsight was one of those things. And it was just kind of funny because it was on the bucket list. It was like, oh, that'll never happen. Only the real professionals get to make Pluralsight courses.
Right.
And then at a certain point in my life, a friend of mine, Stephanie Bruno, she had pushed me to Summit for the first time like 3 years ago. And I got in my head the idea of, well, why the heck not? Let's just do it. What's the worst that could happen?
You only live once, right?
Yeah, exactly. And no, so what happens is you reach out to them, and then if they're interested, they'll get in contact with you. And it felt like this weird job interview, but actually, it wasn't too difficult to get in because that's actually just getting your foot in the door. You have to do an audition. You have to do a 10-minute audition where it's basically a lightning talk.
Oh, wow.
And it took, I want to say 20, 30 hours of edits and revisions and cycles before it actually got like accepted. But you basically pick a subject and you have to do this whole narrative arc in 10 minutes. So you have to explain the concept and wrap it up and have a demo and all this stuff in 10 minutes, which is, if you've ever done a lightning talk, is really difficult.
Yeah. Almost compressing the time makes it more difficult than giving yourself an hour. Yeah.
And you really have to learn to just focus on a single tiny little piece.
Right.
But I did just the bare bone basics of execution plans. But yeah, you get an acquisitions editor who's basically trying to help you with the process. And then whenever he thinks it's ready, it goes to the curriculum director. And then they give you a yes, a no, or a do-over if you had maybe technical issues. But that took me months and definitely tens of hours. And then at that point I got in, but I had to do a course. And it's way more brutal than you normally think, because you can be used to speaking in front of tons of people, right? I had presented in front of 70 people at like SQL Saturday Cleveland before. But for whatever reason, presenting in front of a computer when there's no one in front of you, maybe it's just a lack of feedback, was just terrifying.
Right.
When I was trying to do my audition, I just sounded nervous and jittery and all this stuff, and there was nobody there.
Yeah, exactly. You're not getting any feedback. Are people?
Yeah, exactly.
What's going on?
Yeah, but we agreed on a course idea. I submitted basically a scope of work, just an outline with some fleshed out details, and then you're just kind of on your own. You have an editor to help you if you have questions and stuff, but at that point, it's just a matter of writing the content, recording, editing, and they're really meticulous. If you're clicking on your keyboard or you have a breath that you haven't muted, they'll catch it. And the first course took, I want to say, about 150 hours to make an hour and a half worth of content. Yeah. The second course, I want to say, was maybe 100 hours for 2 hours of content. And I got smarter by the end and hired my friend to do a lot of the editing piece. Like, I know you have an editor for the podcast.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It makes me queasy to think about it going back. I hired him at like episode 35.
Yeah.
You had to think about going back. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I remember some of the old episodes. Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Back when you were amateur podcast groupie as opposed to professional.
You know what? I got episode 13, so I was happy.
There you go.
Lucky. So people go watch Eugene's courses to give him small amounts of money. But if a lot of you do it, he'll get a lot of small amounts of money, which I think adds up to a moderate amount of money.
If you watch one of my courses, I'll get like half of a Starbucks.
So watch both of his courses so he can have a macchiato.
A whole Starbucks, yeah. Not venti, but maybe like a grande, which is small. I don't get that. Yeah, I get like somewhere between $1 and $2 per hour. So literally, you'll get me like half a Starbucks if you go watch one of my courses, which I appreciate because it'll go straight into my health insurance fund.
Now, Kevin, I know you speak a lot, but have you done courses before?
That's an understatement.
Yeah.
It isn't a true SQL Saturday if Kevin isn't there.
That's true too.
I am still trying to find a way so that I could do 2 SQL Saturdays in the same day. Chicago and Cincinnati would have been good, but I have the chutzpah to pull it off. I'll try to organize something like that one of these years.
There you go.
That's great.
Interesting.
As far as courses go, no, not really. I'm not doing much along those lines. I've got enough other things going on that I don't think my wife will let me do yet more stuff.
Yeah, take on another task.
I have to come home every week to remind her that I'm still alive.
Yeah.
Reset the dead man switch, that thing.
Maybe during tax season when she's busy with all those taxes, you'll be like, just slip that in there. Well, interesting. So one of the things we're commonly talking about is changes, trends, how that's affecting us, things that we either want to do, things we want to talk about, or things that we want to do professionally. So I guess I am curious. We're kind of in the middle of 2018. And Eugene, you mentioned the bucket list. So maybe not quite bucket list esque. But what's on your plates for the rest of 2018?
Yeah. So for me, I'm kind of stuck in this limbo kind of piece right now because the past 6 months have just been trying to stay afloat.
Right.
So I know I'd really like to pick up some of that whole data science thing before it's just an old buzzword.
Right.
So I have this stack of books. I've got Data Science for Dummies. I wanted to go through the Microsoft Professional Program on data science and all those things. The thing I'm struggling with right now is, okay, I'm starting to have some more free time. We can breathe a little bit in terms of the finances. But at least with the job that I do right now, machine learning, data science, all the cool things that Kevin gets to do don't really apply to my job. And so it's hard figuring out how much do I want to invest in something that might be 3 years down the road or for the next job that I have.
Sure.
So that's kind of what I'm struggling with right now.
It's also tough when you don't have that problem to solve. So it feels a little bit more abstract.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're being paid to solve the problem, then that learning can sometimes come a little easier.
Oh, it's a lot more incentivized. We have a customer that's has some code in VB.net that they are going to pay for support. And I'm far more motivated to learn some VB.net right now because I need to pretend like I'm an expert.
Right.
Box Pro, here we come.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, what about you, Kevin?
I have been getting into pre-cons, so I'm going to shill a little bit since Eugene got to shill.
Oh, absolutely.
So I've been doing a pre-con on R, which is getting you from learning how to spell the word to learning how to spell the word in cursive, and maybe a couple other things in there as well. But we're coming up near the end of May, and I'll be doing it in Mexico City, so that'll be nice.
Oh, wow.
And before SQL Saturday Columbus, I'll be in Columbus, Ohio doing it as well. So I've got those two confirmed. Going to try to squeeze it in a couple other places as well. I'm very happy about the way that it's all come together. And even though by the end of the day, after I've spent 8 hours straight talking, it's kind of a train wreck for me.
Sure.
But that's fine. I don't need to talk the rest of that day.
Yeah, there you go. Now, is that a victory burrito worthy, or is that just when you leave?
Okay, so first of all, there's got to be some context here. You can't just drop terms like victory burrito and expect people to know what that is.
Not everyone's seen the dashboard. Yeah.
Not everyone has seen the awful dashboard that has been made slightly less awful. So the story behind victory burritos, it's a little joke thing that I have where after I go present someplace, I tend to get a burrito because you can always find a burrito place somewhere. Almost always. Turns out that there are places that are very difficult to find a burrito place. But you can find a burrito somewhere, and it's always rather inexpensive, pretty good quality. You know what you're getting yourself into. So I tend to go get one of those after I present at a major place. Although, interestingly, I've never done it in the Raleigh-Durham, Chapel Hill Research Triangle area. Also, I rarely do it in Charlotte because we have fried chicken down here, and fried chicken is fantastic.
Ah, there you go.
So I go get one of these things after most SQL Saturdays. And with pre-cons, usually the pre-con is the day of the speaker dinner, which means I'm not going to get a burrito. I'm getting a free meal. So, of course, I'm going to eat on somebody else's dime. So I usually wait until like the Saturday.
There you go.
I want it noted for the record that Kevin doesn't consider a sushi burrito as a valid option for his victory burrito. And I was very disappointed in Cincinnati to learn this.
No, so I also don't think that a Pop-Tart is a sandwich.
I've seen the chart. It makes sense.
I love the Dungeons and Dragons version of it where lawful good is like a regular sandwich. And then you go to, I think Chaotic Evil was the Pop-Tart.
Chaotic Evil was the Pop-Tart. I think Chaotic Good was like an ice cream sandwich.
Yes.
And Lawful Evil was like a chicken wrap.
There you go.
You're going to put this in the show notes, right, Carlos?
Yeah, of course. We'll make sure. I'd never even heard of a sushi burrito. So this is news to me.
We'll find you the What Makes a Sandwich D&D alignment chart for the show notes.
That way people will have learned something important from this.
Yes.
That's right. Their lives can now be complete as a result of listening to this, rather than most Adam Sandler movies being dumber as a result of listening to it.
Yeah. Also, you don't eat pizza with a fork and knife.
Oh, gosh.
Paul Popovich will fight you.
I'm just going to lay it out right here. I will take Paul on in any forum. We will go 12 rounds. I'm calling him out. This is like wrestling now.
Yeah, I was in Costa Rica and we were trying to get in with Microsoft Office down there. And we went out to eat lunch with the head. So he was the lead data platform contact for all of Central America. And we went out and we happened to pick an Italian place and we ordered pizza. And of course, it's an individual pizza. So we're not sharing. And it comes on a plate and he picks up his knife and fork. And I'm like, oh man. And I'm thinking, okay, the pizza's, a little stuck together. He's just going to separate the pieces and then we're going to eat it like normal.
Like Americans.
And he separated it and then he started cutting all the individual pieces. And I was like, you have got to be joking me. Oh, and so I had to eat my pizza with a fork and knife, right? Because, I figured, well, he's doing it, so I'm going to follow suit.
Just not a trendsetter. That's the problem.
Yes, I did not feel like that was this exact moment to start that trend.
That's the hill to die on, Carlos.
Oh, man. Well, so for my 2018, so compañeros, you'll know that I'm trying to put on the SQL Trail again. So this is year 2. I've actually just put together the YouTube video from last year and looking to grow on that a bit. So we're excited. We have a couple of the same speakers. So Kevin will be there and a couple new speakers. And one of the other things that we're doing that I can announce,
nice.
I guess, here on the podcast today.
Breaking news.
Yeah.
Breaking news. That's right. So Melissa Coates and Megan Longoria are going to come and do the Friday hands-on lab.
Hey, that's awesome.
So the Friday lab is going to be designing Azure data and analytic solutions. And so they're going to take us through and talk a little bit about all the different variations of moving some of that data. So the real-time data ingestion versus batch loads, data virtualization, integration, talk about, read versus schema on write, things like that, Hadoop. And then we'll actually do some hands-on stuff and set some things up in Azure. So that's, I'm excited about that. I think that's going to be a fun activity. And I really enjoy both Melissa and Megan.
They're both great.
Yeah, I don't know Megan all that well, but I really enjoy Melissa, and I think she's a great instructor. I really like the way she presents.
They are both great.
Yeah.
I give my official seal of approval.
There you go.
You can buy my seal of approval for 3 easy payments in 1995.
Yeah. Oh, hey, a discount, right? Where do I sign up? So I'm looking forward to that. And, we'll have to figure out how to, once Eugene's released his course and is sitting on, millions and millions of $1 bills.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. We'll have to figure out how to get him down there and get him involved in some way. That is on our plans. And then on a professional note, I've been talking a little bit more about what we're trying to do in business a little bit. And we've been doing quite a bit in healthcare. And so one of the big conferences in our space is Cerner. So Cerner is an electronic medical record. And that is an invitation-only conference. So one of the other goals that I have this year is to get invited to the Cerner conference. So we'll see what happens there. And so if you listeners by chance happen to have some pull, I'd be very interested in talking with you.
They'll probably disinvite you if they find out you eat pizza with your hands.
Yes, there is that. There are multiple reasons why they might disinvite me, but I guess I'm just adding to the list now.
So when did you decide, or how did you decide on healthcare as a vertical, by the way? Because that's kind of what you specialize in terms of your DBA work, right?
Yeah, I never knew that you were a masochist, Carlos. Tell us more.
So truth be told, this actually goes back to working with Steve. We had been looking for a niche and an area. And so really what that kind of boils down to is where we're going to spend our marketing dollars, right? At the end of the day, and how we want to present ourselves as experts in a certain field, because that idea of being database experts to everybody just doesn't appeal, right? It's like, why can't I just go out and get, whoever? We wanted to find a niche. And so Steve was actually invited to speak at a user group meeting in Austin in 2016. We went there and we thought, okay, well, let's take a peek and see if there's a need. Like, can we create a niche for ourselves in this market? And we started talking with the vendors, and talking with the customers, talking with GE, who owns the product. And we thought, you know what, there's a need here. We can do something here. And so we've been carving out that footprint and then trying to expand it slowly. Because, healthcare, one of the things that was shocking to me that I didn't really realize is that it's just so fragmented, particularly from a technology perspective. And there are just so many different vendors that are trying to do so many different things. And you think, gosh, and I don't know, I guess you liken that to, your own company and having all the different departments. It's kind of like that for healthcare, and none of them really talk to each other, particularly from an IT perspective.
Yeah.
Because all of the EMRs are just a little bit different, and none of them were set up to integrate with each other. And so it's kind of a nightmare. And then at least in the private practice as well, you add this idea that the doctors own the business, right? So it's their business. So they get to set up things their way.
Right.
So I found it fascinating. And so we've just tried to find ways to help out providers because they have so many things they're trying to do. And the health IT worker is stretched quite a bit as well. And we feel like there's a need for a few more good data vendors in that space.
Cool.
That's probably the long answer to that question. And we've enjoyed working with those people. I think that's the other thing.
Nice.
So where are we going from here? Do we want to go ahead and jump into SQL Family?
Sure, let's do that now.
Okay, so we know we've changed up a bit, or we've added some new questions since both, Kevin and Eugene have been on the program. So we're going to go ahead and ask these new questions to them and then walk through them. And so it was interesting that they had to do a little bit of studying or a little prep beforehand, which we might get into. And so, okay, let's start with you, Kevin. So all-time favorite movie that you wish to discuss publicly?
I can't give a single answer. That's not how I roll. So I'm going to give 3 answers. The actual all-time favorite movie is M by Fritz Lang. 1931 film, starred Peter Lorre as a child murderer. It was a groundbreaking film and also very disturbing.
Yikes.
Now, if you want my favorite silent film, you got to go back another 12 years or so to Spiders, which was a 1919 film by Fritz Lang. Notice that I have this thing about Fritz Lang. Metropolis was also great. I love the fact that they found more footage recently, and I'm hoping to see the latest final super extended huge version of it. But frankly, for silent films, I preferred Spiders. It's not for everybody, for sure, but it was an interesting opening to the genres. The first action adventure film and precursor to Indiana Jones and that entire set of like Harrison Ford style films. It was a global traveler from San Francisco who goes and tries to fight an international shady organization. So kind of cool.
Interesting.
It was a later silent era film, so kind of expressionistic in nature. They definitely had that silent film. I'm going to act very openly. And from a view of, say, 20, 30 years later, you look back and say, wow, these guys are way overacting. They're like emoting far too much, until you realize, no, that was the style at the time. That was, it was on purpose. These people were doing it intentionally.
Right.
If you want my favorite color talkie, we have to go that far.
Here we go.
Apocalypse Now Redux. The original film, the 79 edition, re-released in 2001, and they added a bunch more footage. If you do watch this, take out the entire French plantation scene. That is absolutely not worth it. That saves you like 20 minutes. So now it's just a 3-hour-long film. I actually have a story behind this where I was studying in Germany. I was doing a German as a foreign language course, and we were supposed to talk for a couple of minutes about a movie. And I picked Apocalypse Now and walked through the entire plot point by point. And by the end of it, the grader, he gave up on everybody else. He's like, okay, please, you've broken me. Just you take your grade and go. So I can talk about this thing for quite some time.
Yeah, so you have a thing for
Harrison Ford and orange glasses. Yes, you've got me.
I was going to say, so sound in general, it doesn't seem to be your cup of tea when it comes to movies, right? The less dialogue, the better, right?
Yeah, I'd say that it's true. Yeah.
There you go. Well, so then to jump forward 100 years, right, to Eugene's favorite movie, or at least current favorite movie, because we all know that this sometimes changes depending on your mood. The answer to this question could change every other weekend.
Now that I've wrecked it, any choice that Eugene makes is going to be, oh, wow, what a casual.
Oh, no, fine. If you want a silent film, clearly want The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, because it not only is expressionist, but it is the first horror film.
Yes.
So it's truly a classic.
Caligari is also fantastic. By the way, you can get both of these films on Netflix only because, they're not going to put it on streaming.
I think it's like number 80 on our Netflix DVD queue right now. The only reason I know of that film, I'm not a connoisseur like Kevin. I took a film theory course in college as an honors course. I know the tiniest smidge. I also know that Russian montage is way different than what we think of from like Rocky. But anyway, my current favorite, and I'm bad at favorites, is Avengers Infinity War. And because it's still so new and Carlos hasn't seen it, I can't actually explain any details. But speaking vaguely about it, I think it's amazing what they've done with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where they've got like 18 films you have to watch as homework to be able to know all the pieces.
Yeah, the tie-ins are very cool.
Yeah. Yep. Just the fact that they've been able to, over practically 10 years, build up this entire narrative arc. And the film literally cost $300 million to produce, in large part because they had so many actors in it from all the films.
Right.
But it's already made, I think, $1 billion back.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was going to say that the last one was like $1.5 billion, right? So they had money to burn, right?
Sure. No, they weren't hurting for cash, but it's still kind of impressive. But it was just this great, like 2.5 hour experience that kind of tied together all these pieces that were set up by 18 other films.
Maybe a little sad to when they announced that DC was going to break that mold. And I thought, okay, maybe you don't have to follow the stories too closely, but I feel like there should be like Easter eggs at least, right? Of the tie-ins. And anyway, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
If I didn't have that as my favorite, I actually have a small Excel file of top-rated movies by me, because I do a Power Query demo where I compare IMDb's top 250 to mine and mostly just point out that I haven't seen much of anything.
There you go. There you go. Okay, which takes us to our second question. So the city or place you most want to visit. Now, Kevin apparently has visited half the world, studying in Germany and all these different places. So is there a place that you haven't yet visited that you'd like to visit, Kevin?
There are still a bunch of places that are on my hit list. Let's see. I got to start thinking about it, trying to knock off the stuff that I've been to or will be going to pretty soon. But Poland had been on my list for a while. I wanted to visit Warsaw and Krakow. Israel's been on the list for a while. I'll probably be hitting Taipei next year. I've been to Macau before. It was actually where my wife and I did our honeymoon, the South Island, and want to go back there again. So I guess that's probably the place I most want to visit a second time.
There you go. Now, so Macau, is that Philippines? No,
Macau is a Chinese territory that was a Portuguese colony. There's still a lot of Portuguese. The North Island is known for giant casinos. It's one of the biggest gambling centers in the world. The South Island is where all the people live.
Interesting.
Aren't traveling in to gamble. So the North Island is very glitzy, very fashionable. A lot of money rolling through there. But I definitely prefer the South Island, which is more what you get in Southeast Asia.
And what about you, Eugene?
So my answer is not nearly as exciting. And it's actually somewhere that I've been technically. So the answer is Barcelona. And the reason is, I always joke, when Annie and I got married, day 2, we did a budget. Because Annie's really great at saving money, but not as much on paperwork. So I'm like, we need to figure out what we got here.
Sure.
And we were planning on going to a honeymoon in Spain. We were going to go to Europe and spend a week there. And I did all the math, and I crunched all the numbers, and I said, well, we can have a honeymoon in Spain, or we can have a savings account. Now, which do you want, honey? And she thought about it and said, we should probably have a savings account. So we waited a year and had our honeymoon in Gettysburg, which was really nice, but I still would love to go to Europe with my wife sometime and spend a week there.
Now, you said you've technically been there.
Yeah, so twice for college, either a class or as a research aide, I've been to Europe. So once was in Germany, and then once was in Spain. So we were in Valencia and Barcelona. And Barcelona is just really, really beautiful city. It's got a lot of culture. And there's a whole set of museums that, if you've ever looked at a calculus book, there's a good chance you've seen them, because they're these crazy pieces of architecture inspired by like the shape of fish bones, or I don't even know how to describe it. But if you just look it up, you'll see it's beautiful.
Interesting.
I'm getting the two confused. That's Valencia is the one that I'm thinking of. Barcelona is the one with the big churches and everything.
Right.
Either way, I definitely want to go to Spain.
There you go. There you go. Very nice. And then our last question today is a food that reminds you of your childhood.
I'm gonna have to punt on this one.
Ooh.
Yeah, I can talk about stuff that reminds me of the college years, but
So I guess what I'm going here for is like comfort food. So maybe what's your comfort food?
well,
And we did talk about burritos already, so I don't know if that.
so obviously it's fried chicken.
Oh, fried chicken. There you go.
That is one of the reasons I moved to the Southeast. Another reason was so that I can get away from snow, and that didn't work out so well. I've moved down, and since then it's been snowing, it seems like constantly, except when it's 95 degrees.
Right.
Possibly even then. So fried chicken is my go-to for when I want to stuff myself with something that's really tasty and awful for you.
So for me, it's wedding soup. There used to be this restaurant called Lindy's that had dirt cheap food, and my grandma would always get like these quarts of wedding soup and everything. So for whatever reason, it stands out to me as this iconic piece of my childhood. But I rarely ever think to actually buy it these days.
Yeah, no, I'm not even sure that I know what wedding soup is. I mean, is it like a rice soup or?
No, that it might be a Pennsylvania area thing. I don't know. You can definitely get it at Walmart. So wedding soup, it's got meatballs, and then it's not. I don't think it's rice. It's usually more of like these little pasta spheres or whatever you would call them, with I think a little bit of greenery like spinach or something like that. Usually very salty, maybe some carrots in it too as well.
So Google tells me that it's got meat, egg, breadcrumbs, Parmesan cheese, basil, and onion powder. Throw them into balls and add some spinach.
It's an Italian style dish.
Yeah, it's an Italian style dish.
You'll go to an upscale Italian restaurant and they'll offer, here's minestrone or wedding soup.
Yeah.
By upscale, I mean slightly actual kind of Italian, not like Olive Garden, not really Italian at all.
Right.
For clarification, Lindy's was not an upscale restaurant.
Or downscale actual Italian, not Olive Garden fake Italian. I'm sorry, people who love Olive Garden. It's not you, it's me.
Well, awesome. Okay, so before we started recording here, we said we were going to have to come up with a name for today's episode. So now I'm going to put you on the spot here. What do we got?
I'm going to go with it's not you, it's me. Because that was the last thing that I said.
Okay.
That's a long punchline.
So someday when you have an approximate infinite amount of time, I can tell you the best joke that I know.
Is it the entirety of Pi?
No. It's an actual joke, but it will seriously take 20 minutes.
Wow. That's some joke.
Yeah.
So in lieu of that joke, right? So we need to continue on. I have a couple more. I've already been embarrassed here, but now I have my game face on, right? We're going to do Kenneth Fisher's crossword puzzle, right, on best practices. Okay, so we did a couple last week. Okay, so continuing, I'm looking at, 9 across. So this is a 4-letter word. And
I got some of those.
Okay, it's a...
You want me to start shouting them out?
And this will actually work better, right? So now I have my analysts, here. So this is a 4-letter word. The second letter says an I because it intersects with compression, and it's a data source for cubes.
Time.
I guess that would work. A data source.
I mean, you can have a date or a time dimension. It's probably something that makes more sense, though.
I like time. Yeah, because data source for cubes. I mean, anything could be a data source. I mean,
right.
I mean, data, but time. Okay, I like it. Okay, let's see if we can get another one here. Oh gosh, so some of these are long, and I feel like I need to think about them before I say them out loud on the air here. Okay. Oh, here we go. So 11 across is not 5, more like 50.
Varchar?
It's only 4 characters. 4 across. So I think 5, like 50. So that's a common for the cost threshold, but only cost threshold for parallelism. Max, that's the max DOP. Huh. So 4 letters, not 5, more like 50.
Yeah, I've never heard anyone turn into an acronym like CTFP.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, well now, so let's see. Now there is an 11 down, and okay, and here we go. And maybe because it starts with the same letter, so maybe this will give us a hint. And 11 down is remove a lookup. And it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 characters, remove a lookup.
Oh, denormalize?
Oh, there. Let's see. There we go.
Because you're flattening a table, so you don't need a lookup table.
Let's see. Am I spelling that right? DENORMALIZE. Looks like we're short 2 letters. Man, I'm going to have to think a little bit more about this. This is why I don't do the New York Times, crossword puzzle, right? Because I'm like, I'm an idiot, right? Okay, so Kenneth Fisher's crossword puzzle getting the best of us today. We're gonna have to think a little bit more about it before we press the record button next time.
Gonna have to rig it next time.
That's right. You need to rig it.
Look better.
That's right. That's going to take a lot of effort. Okay, well, that's going to do it for today's episode. And I guess for It's Not You, It's Me. Thanks, guys, for coming on. It's nice having you.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for hitting record.
So that's going to do it for today. We are going to have to be a little bit better about reviewing Kenneth's crossword puzzle before we get into it, right? So we don't sound like complete idiots. But thanks again, compañeros, for tuning in. It's always a pleasure to have you. Again, want to remind you about the sequeltrail.com. Go ahead with the code SequelTrail. You can get the $100 discount. That will also apply to Megan and Melissa's conference as well. So if you just wanted to come for the Friday, and of course, we're having a lunch. That's going to be a nice event. So some discussion, some presentation, and then some hands-on labs with that Azure data and analytics, kind of so getting started in there. So if that's an area that you're interested in pursuing, we'll invite you to come check it out. That's going to do it for today's episode. We don't really have a show notes for today's episode. I mean, we'll make a post, but I don't know that there'll be all that much there to look at for this episode. But we will see you next time on the SQL Trail.
SQL Data Partners.